All right, hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to our reporting class. We're going to be going to go ahead and go over reporting on your Giving Tuesday Now results. If you didn't participate in Giving Tuesday Now, you could still use these same reports to track results of COVID-19 or any other campaign that you've been working on at all. This is good for any type of campaign that you're running. This is an intermediate class and builds on our beginners class and of basic reports and filters. So if you haven't already watched that or was a part of that and need a refresher, please check out that class and you can learn on the beginning things that we'll be working with. So for our beginners class, we learned how to copy and rename a report. We took a peek at the available report templates. We worked with columns, including default columns for a report, as well as adding, removing, moving, renaming, grouping, collapsing, and sorting columns. We set the output of a report to household, and we learned about the save options as well. In this class, we'll be covering reports for your Giving Tuesday Now or COVID-19 campaigns. We'll be covering nested filters, as well as cross-data reports and how to reference reports. For your Giving Tuesday Now campaigns, we'll be going over sorting reports by campaign. We'll be going over peer-to-peer fundraising, and we'll be going over Twitter interactions and reporting on that as well. For nested filters, we'll be going over comparing donors and non-donors. We'll be going over constituents whose all transactions were from Giving Tuesday. We'll look into constituents who have given to you with Giving Tuesday before, as well as new donors from your Giving Tuesday Now campaign. We'll talk about cumulative giving over time, as well as year-over-year giving. And for cross-data reporting, we'll go over constituents who have opened an email and have made transactions, as well as constituents who open an email and have no transactions. We'll also talk about referencing reports. We'll be able to build a report and then use the filters from that report inside of another report, as well as using them inside of a letter or an email template. All right, so I'll go ahead and start with Giving Tuesday Now reports. I'm going to go ahead and bring up a new report here. If anyone has any questions at any time, feel free to ask using the question button down below. I'll do my best to answer them, and we also have John available who will be answering questions through chat as well. So we'll go ahead and build a report that will sort by campaign first. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up a new transaction report from scratch. So inside of this report, I'll click on the green add filter button next to include and select campaign from the list. And I've set up a Giving Tuesday Now campaign in my campaigns list. So I can select that from the list right here and then click OK. And that's going to bring up any transactions made to that Giving Tuesday Now campaign. This will include transactions that were made both online and offline. So as long as they went to that campaign in any way, they're going to show up inside of the results here. Giving Tuesday for 2019 raised over 511 million in online donations and over 1.4 billion in offline donations. So being able to report on both of those all at once is a very nice feature to have there. So I'll go ahead and let's save this real quick just as our Giving Tuesday, and we'll keep editing here for now. So let's say I want to get peer-to-peer fundraising going with this as well. What I can do is I can click on the green and button and select appeal from the list here. Inside of this, I've gone ahead and set up an appeal in my database as well for peer-to-peer fundraising. So I have peer-to-peer listed right here. I'll go ahead and select that in addition to the campaign filter that I have, and then click OK. So now any transaction that went to the Giving Tuesday Now campaign that was also peer-to-peer through the appeal will be showing up in my results here. I can also click and select type from the list here. And inside of the type filter, I'll want to select donation, pledge payment, and recurring donation payment. What this does is this will look for revenue-based transactions only. So this is funds that have actually been received, and it will remove the soft credit that's in my results here. What I can do from here if I want to see information on at soft credit is I can add column, and I'll go ahead and search for soft credit inside of this list here. I could add in the soft credit name and the soft credit amount, and then click on the add two columns button to add both of those into my results here. So now that I can see that this transaction here of 250 has a soft credit to Ramona here, and the soft credit amount of that was 125. So I'm able to see on this transaction what part of that was soft credited to who. So I'll go ahead and save that as well. All right, next I'm going to go ahead and bring up a new report, and I'll have this one look for interactions here. So inside of this, I'm going to go ahead and set this up as our Twitter interaction report. So if anyone is using our Twitter listening hub, you'll know that you're able to connect your Twitter account to Bloomerang and see tweets that have referenced your organization or have used certain hashtags in that way. What we can do is we can report on those interactions that are created based off of that Twitter listening hub. So I can click on the green add filter button here, and I'll select channel from the list. Inside of this, I'll go ahead and select Twitter as the channel and click OK. And this alone will bring up every interaction that was created through the Twitter listening hub. So every Twitter interaction created on there. From here, I can click on the green and button and select subject from the list. Inside of here, I could go ahead and enter anything that I'd like here. So for example, if I want to see tweets that have mentioned my Twitter account, I've got it connected to our Twitter account, Bloomerang Tech. So I can go ahead and type in that Twitter handle here and then click OK. And what that will do is that will narrow my list of interactions down to any interactions that have mentioned that Twitter handle inside of it. I can also use this for hashtags as well. So if I had any hashtags that were reported on through the Twitter listening hub, I could go ahead and change this to that hashtag. So for example, I can use Be Like Blossom as our hashtag and click OK. And unfortunately, I don't have any results here right now, but if any tweets were using that hashtag and you were searching for that hashtag within the Twitter listening hub, it would create that interaction and you would be able to see those hashtags listed in your results here. All right, so with that, let's go ahead back to our reports list, and I'm going ahead and create a new report again. So before diving into nested filters, I just want to remind everyone that we have these report templates listed in here as well. So all of these reports that are listed here can be built from scratch, which is what we'll show you so you get an understanding of how the filters work and what they're doing inside of your report here. We'll take a look at some of these report templates later as well. You can always start with a report template as well and then customize it to your needs. So you'll be able to take any of the pre-built filters that are in these templates and adjust them, remove them, add to them, anything that you need to do there. All right, go ahead and start with a new report from scratch, and I'll select constituents here. I'm going to go ahead and go over nested filters next. All right, so inside of our filter, I'm going to go ahead and click on either one of these will work. I'll just use include as an example here. And I'm going to go ahead and search for has. Now, when I do that, I'm going to get a number of results here. You'll see that a good number of these have some sort of icon next to them. You'll see has addresses, has email addresses, interactions, transactions, notes, variety of different results right here. These icons are an indicator that if you selected this filter, there'll be another set of filters that you can use inside of it. So we can essentially go a level deeper and filter even more specifically by those fields. You'll notice that this includes the different timeline entries such as transactions, interactions, and notes, which means that we could filter specifically for constituents who do or don't have any of these timeline entries. And we can filter deeper to look for specific types of transactions, interactions, notes, or tasks as well. So here I'm going to go ahead and select has transactions from the list. And inside of here, this is just going to default to has any transaction. So if I were to click OK right now, this is going to bring up a list of any constituents who have a transaction at all within our database. As an example, let me go ahead and click on Add Column here, and I can select lifetime revenue from the list. And if I add this as a column to the results, you'll see that this list has brought revenue in some form. So they have transactions with a dollar amount, and it's able to show constituents that have made those transactions here. If I go ahead and click on my has any transactions filter to bring that back up, I can make a number of edits to this as well. For example, I can click on the has any text and get a different list of options here. I'll go ahead and select all. What this is going to do is this is going to look for all transactions, and it's also going to bring up a new set of filters down below that's searching for those transactions specifically. So what I can do here, for example, say I want to look for constituents who have only donated to my GivingTuesdayNow campaign. They haven't made any donations anywhere else at any point. So what I can do here is I can click on the green add filter button, and this will bring up a list of different transaction filters here. So I can click on campaign to bring that filter up, and then click inside of here and select my GivingTuesdayNow campaign from the list. I'll click on OK to save that, and I'll click OK one more time here. What this will do is it will look to see if all of the constituents transactions are to the GivingTuesdayNow campaign. If I click OK to save this, it's going to go ahead and bring up my one result here. If I were to right click on here, I'll open this in a new tab just to kind of show you how this works here. I'll bring up Lloyd's profile and bring up their timeline. And I see that they only have one donation here, and that it is in fact to my GivingTuesdayNow campaign. So all of their transactions have gone to the campaign that I'm searching for here. It's only going to give me constituents like that. And that would be the primary difference between the all and the has any here, is all is going to look at all of the transactions within their timeline, while has any is only going to look for individual transactions. Let's go ahead and remove this filter. I'm going to go ahead and add has transactions again, just to start fresh here. And let's click on has any and select has at least from the list here. Now, what I can do with this is I can look for constituents who have at least a certain number of transactions. Let's say, for example, I want to find constituents that have at least 2 transactions within my database. So I can go ahead and change the number inside of this field here and click OK. And that's going to show me constituents that have more than one transaction. I could go ahead and add a column here. I'm just going to show you as an example. If I select has transactions from this list, this defaults to showing the number of all of their transactions. So if I click OK here, this will show me how many transactions that they have. And none of these should be below 2 here. I shouldn't see any ones from this list. So I'll go ahead and click back on my filter here. The has at least 2 transactions. And I can filter this more specifically as well. So if I click on the transactions text here, I can select specific transactions from the list, and this will bring up that list of transaction filters here as well. So say I want to see if the 2 transactions that I'm looking for are specific towards something. And let's go ahead and use our Giving Tuesday Now campaign as an example for this as well. I'll click on the green Add Filter button here and select Campaign from the list again. And in here, I'll select our Giving Tuesday Now campaign and click OK. So now what this does is I have this set to look for at least 2 specific transactions, and those transactions need to be towards the Giving Tuesday Now campaign. If I click on OK to save that, that's going to bring up my one result right here. And I've got myself in this database, and I have 2 transactions that have gone to my Giving Tuesday Now campaign. So if I were to take a look at that number of transactions, you'll see that there's 16 of them. It's not just 2. That's just because my filter here is looking to see that I have at least 2 that have gone towards the Giving Tuesday Now campaign. That won't exclude any other transactions that a constituent has made. So if they have other transactions on their record, as long as at least 2 of them are to the Giving Tuesday Now campaign, they would show up in your results here. I can also go ahead and change has at least to has at most here. So that way I can see constituents who have no more than a certain number of transactions. Let's say, for example, that I want to see constituents who have only given to the Giving Tuesday Now campaign once. What I can do is I can set that to has at most, and I can change this field into 1 right here, and then click OK to save this. And this is going to give me a list of constituents who have only donated 1 time towards my Giving Tuesday Now campaign. They may have had other transactions to other campaigns at a certain point in time, but they've only given to my Giving Tuesday campaign once. Likewise, I can remove this filter here, and I can go back to just regular transactions, and I can see a list of constituents who have only given 1 time total here. So if I were to look at this, I'm only going to have 1 inside my number of transactions for each of these constituents. All right, I'm going to go ahead and remove this again just to kind of start at from scratch. I'll select has transactions again. So next I can look for the first or the last. So I'll select on has any right here, and I'll select the first from the list. What this is going to do is this will look for the first transaction on a constituent's record. So say, for example, I want to look for constituents who have only started donating recently, newer constituents to my organization. What I can do here is I can click on the green Add Filter button and select Date from the list here. And inside of this date filter, let's say I want to look for constituents who have only started donating this year. So I can click on the green Last Week text and scroll down this list to this year and click OK on that. So now this filter will look for constituents whose first transaction was made this year. I'll go ahead and click OK to save this full filter. And it's going to bring up a list of constituents who haven't started donating until this year. As an example, I'll go ahead and click Add Column and look for first transaction date, and I'll add that as a column into my results here. And you'll notice that each of these are within 2020 here. None of them have donated before this year, so they wouldn't be showing up in my results. I can also similarly use the last instead of the first. So if I were to click on this and select the last instead, I would be able to use this to look for donors whose most recent donation was whatever I was looking for here. I can look for a certain time. I can look for a certain campaign, anything that would make sense that you're looking for here. So if I want to see donors who have donated more recently, I can use it in this way. So the most recent one transaction was made this year. I can click OK on that. And I'll load up my results here. If I click Add Column and select Latest Transaction Date, I can see, oh, there is one kind of unique thing right here. You'll notice that this one is listing 2018 instead of 2020. This column isn't set to look for soft credits, but this filter will look for soft credits. So since this constituent has a soft credit that's within 2020, and I can bring that up to show that real quick. That's why they're getting listed in the results right here. This was the Ramona record that we looked at earlier for the peer-to-peer. So they have the 2020 soft credit, and that's why they're showing up in the results. All right, I'll go ahead and remove this one more time so we can start fresh here. And I'll select Has Transactions again. And inside of this, I can click on the Has Any text and select the Calculated from the list. Now, this right here will allow me to look for cumulative giving. So I can look for constituents who have donated between a certain amount here. So let's say, for example, I want to look for any constituent who's given between 100 and 250, or I'll just look for 250 and over. So I can enter 250 into the first field here, and I'll go ahead and leave that second field blank. Since I have a lifetime revenue column in my results already, I'm going to go ahead and click on the amount text here and select revenue amount, just so that that lines up with my results in this column right here. I'll click OK to save that. And what this will do is this will look for constituents whose transactions, all of their transactions total to at least 250. Click OK to save that. And if I look within my lifetime revenue right here, I shouldn't see anything that's under 250. If I click this to sort by the amount, I'll see that the lowest that I have right here is 250. I can also use this for a higher end as well. So if I'm looking between 250 and say 500, I can enter 500 into the second field. Click OK to save that. And I shouldn't have anything that's higher than 500 on this list as well. So this will look for total amounts that constituents have donated. If you're looking for total amounts within a certain time, we can do that as well. Any specific transactions that you might be looking for, you can click on all transactions here and select specific transactions. So say I want to look for constituents who have only given 250, between 250 and 500 this year. I can click on the green Add Filter button, select Date from the list, and then select this year from that list there. I'll click OK to save that date filter, and OK again to save that full filter. And this is going to pull up constituents who have only donated at least 250 to 500 during 2020 alone. So the major difference between using the calculated here and then using just a standard amount filter, if I were to use amount right here and type in 250 to 500, what this amount filter does on its own is it's only going to look for individual transactions. So this would look to see if they've given at least one transaction that has been between 250 and 500. Using the calculated instead, we'll look to see throughout their giving history. So it will look for multiple transactions and add those amounts together depending on the filters you have set up here. And you'll be able to calculate based off of total rather than a single transaction amount. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to cancel out of this and start fresh with a new report here. Let's go ahead and add in some columns to our new report, and we'll set up a report that would go over year-to-year giving. So I'll build a new report from scratch, and I'll select constituents from the list here. One of the most common reports that we've been asked about is the ability to report on year-over-year giving with a side-by-side comparison for each year there. So what I can do, let's go ahead and start real basic here. I'll just look for constituents with any transactions. So I'll select has transactions from the list here. If you want to look for more specific transactions, say for example, you want to see if just your totals for your Giving Tuesday campaigns, you would be able to edit this transaction filter. So I can look for specific transactions, click on add filter here, and click campaign, and I would be able to select my Giving Tuesday campaigns and search for constituents who have just given to those. For now, I'm going to go ahead and keep it simple. I'll just look for constituents with any transactions. So now that I have this list here, let's say that I want to see who has given what during each year. So I'll go ahead and start with 2020, and I'll work my way backwards to see what constituents have given per year here. I'll click on the add column button here and select has transactions from the list. By default, this is just going to show the number of transactions that a constituent has, but I can click on the green number text here and select sum from the list. And just so I can show my revenue amount, I'll click on amount here and select revenue amount from the list. This way I'm getting an idea of what's actually been received, what my organization has been able to collect, and I'm not adding in like transactions together, so I won't accidentally add a pledge amount along with a pledge payment. And I want to look for 2020 transactions only. So if I click all transactions here and select specific transactions, that will create a list of filters down below here. So I can use this to look for specific types of transactions I want to see a total for. I can click on the green add filter button next to include and select a date from the list. And in here, I'll select the last week text and scroll down to this year, and then click OK to save that date. And I'll click OK one more time to save that column to my results here. So what this will do is this is going to show me the total amount that that constituent had donated in 2020. You'll see not all of these are filled because I'm looking for anyone with transactions at all and not just in 2020. But I can see someone here has donated 250. I'll go ahead and sort those so I can see results here. But I can see my 2020 totals right here. Say, for example, real quick, that you were looking just for constituents who have donated to your Giving Tuesday campaigns. You would want to include that inside of your columns as well. So right now, this column, if I click on the title here, I can edit this. And it's only looking for transactions that were made this year. So in addition to that, I can click the and button, select campaign from the list, and select Giving Tuesday Now as my campaign. So that way, not only is my report looking for constituents who have given to the Giving Tuesday campaign, but my column will look to only total transactions to that campaign as well. I'll go ahead and click OK just to save that. And let's say, for example, that I want to look for 2019 as well. I could click the add column button and select has transactions again. And inside of this, I'll select number and click sum. I'll set this to revenue amount again, just to keep that consistent with my previous column. And I'll click all transactions and select specific transactions. Here, I can click the green add filter button and add date to the list again. And I'll click on last week and select last year from the list here. Click on OK to save that. I'm going to keep the the campaign filter out of this just to still be able to show totals. I don't have any transactions that go back previous to that. But if you're looking for your Giving Tuesday campaign specifically, for example, you would want to add that column into, or that filter into every column that you set up here. So now what I have is I have a report that's showing me the total amounts that a constituent has given in both 2020 and in 2019. So I can compare per year, and I can see that my 2019, this constituent gave $711, and they've downgraded to $250 over this year. If you'd like, you can also name these columns just to make it a little bit easier to know which one is which. So I can click on this here to open the options for that column, and I can click on this again to be able to edit this. So I can delete this, and I'll type in 2020 revenue, and then save that. And I can click this one and set that to 2019 revenue and save that. So this way I know exactly what these columns are showing up without having to try to figure that out based on the default column name. If I wanted to add anything previous to 2019, I can click on Add Column and select Has Transactions again. Select Number and pick Sum. I'll change this to Revenue Amount and that to Specific Transactions. So if I add this date filter in and click on this, there actually isn't any options that will go back previous to last year, but I can click on the During text here and select Between and specify my date range here. So if I want to look for 2018, for example, I can enter January 1st, 2018 into the first field and December 31st, 2018 into the second. Click OK to save that, and then OK one more time, and that would show me my 2018 revenue amount as well. So I can use this to compare year over year to see what a constituent has given during each year. All right, I'm going to go ahead and save this real quick here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let's bring up a new constituent report here. I'm going to open up a new constituent report. So we discussed the has filters here, such as has transactions, has interactions. I can go ahead and combine these filters as well. So let's say, for example, I want to report on constituents who have received a certain email and then see if they've given a transaction recently as well. So for this, let's go ahead and start with the has interactions filter. I'll click on that, and then I'll select has specific interactions from the list here. With this, what I can do is I can look for specific interaction types to see if maybe they've received a certain email. Let's say I sent out a email based on Giving Tuesday. I can click on the green Add Filter button from the list, and let's go ahead and I don't believe I have any results for this, but let me select subject from the list here. Inside of this, I can enter the subject name of an email that I've sent out previously. So let's say, for example, I had an email that went out that just had the subject name of Giving Tuesday. I can type that subject name, or I can copy and paste that subject name directly from my email template and then paste that into here. So I can add this into the subject column and then click OK to save that. And let's say I want to make sure that they've opened that email as well. I can click on the green AND button here and select Is Opened from this list. I'll click on that to add that and then click OK. And I'll go ahead and save this here. I don't believe I'm going to get any results, but I'll save that. And let's say that I want to make sure that any constituents who have received that email, I'm going to edit this a little bit just to show that I have examples. So I'll keep that empty just because I don't have any emails with Giving Tuesday as the subject line. So if they've received an email that they've opened here, I can also sort by channel here and sort by mass email as well. So that way, if I've sent out any mass emails and they've been opened, they will show up in the results of my report right here. What I can do from here, let's say I want to see if these constituents have any donations to my Giving Tuesday campaign as well. I'll go ahead and click on the green and button next to my interactions filter, and I'll select has transactions from the list here. Inside of this, I'll click the transactions text and select specific transactions. And then I'll click the green add filter and select campaign from the list here. Inside of this, I'll select my Giving Tuesday Now campaign and click OK, and then click OK to save this full filter. So what this is going to do at this point is my first filter, the interactions one, is checking to see if any constituents have opened any emails that they've received. And once again, you can use this to sort for specific types of emails. So if you sent out an email regarding Giving Tuesday, you can enter that subject name of that email into a subject filter and look for that email specifically. In addition to that, I'm also looking to see if they've given any donations to my Giving Tuesday campaign. So I've got one result here. I have one person who has opened up that email that they received and they gave to the Giving Tuesday campaign afterwards. With that, I'm going to go ahead and save this report right here. And let's go ahead and open that back up real quick. So I have someone who has made a donation after receiving that email, but let's say I want to see constituents who haven't made a donation afterwards. What I can do, I can make this real simple here. If I click on my transactions filter, this is already set up to look for any constituents who have made a donation to my Giving Tuesday campaign. If I click on the has any, I can select has no here. And this will set the filter to see if someone hasn't given a donation to this campaign. They might have donations somewhere else on their record, but they don't have one that went to this campaign. I can click OK to save that. And this will bring up a list of constituents who have opened an email that they received, let's say regarding that Giving Tuesday campaign, but haven't yet given a donation. So I can use this to potentially reach out to constituents that I think might still be interested in donating to that campaign. I'm going to go ahead and save that as is. So right now, this has been not given to Giving Tuesday Now. And we'll save that. All right, so what I'm going to go over next is referencing reports. So I'm going to use this report I just created as an example here, and I'm going to bring up my email templates. I'll go ahead and create a new email template. And let's say I want to just reach out to the constituents who haven't yet donated. I can select a starter design here. I'll go ahead and do let's just do a simple constituent one for now. So in the design, this is where you would typically just add in whatever you would want to send for your email. Let's say that I want to reach out for constituents who opened the previous email but haven't yet given to my Giving Tuesday campaign. I can reach out to them using my email design here. But let's go into my filter list. So what I can do here is I can click the Add Filter button, and I can select is in a constituent report from the list. Inside of here, I'll click on the Select a Report, and I will look for my, what did I name that? My opened email report. So here I can search for the report that I just created, and I'll find my opened email and not yet given to Giving Tuesday Now. I'll click on that to select it, and then I'll click OK over here to reference that report directly. So now I'll see that the results of my report before are listed in my results for my email right here. So I can use this to essentially look for constituents who had opened that previous email, not given, and I'll just have that list right here. I don't have to build the filters that I had before again. Let's say, for example, I'm going to go ahead and open that up one more time. And I'm going to bring this back to has any transactions. So now I want to look for constituents who have made a donation. I'll change that real quick. And let's go ahead and open up my email templates again. And this time, I want to thank my constituents who have given that donation after opening that email. So I'll start with a thank you design here. And inside of the filter list, I'll click on the green Add Filter button. And this time, since the report I'm referencing is a constituent-based report, I'll want to select constituent from the list here. So I'll click on that. And inside here, I'll click on the green Add Filter button next to Include. And I'll look for the is in a constituent report from this list. Inside of here, I can select my opened email and given to GivingTuesdayNow report. I'll click OK to save that, and I'll click OK one more time to save that constituent filter. What this will do is this is going to take the results of that report and list every transaction that that constituent has made. So my report results only had Tim as a result here. So it's going to list every transaction that Tim has made here. In addition to that, I want to thank them specifically for the Giving Tuesday Now transactions. So I'll click on the green Add button, and I'll select Campaign from the list, and I'll look for that Giving Tuesday Now campaign. So now it's only going to list transactions that specifically went towards Giving Tuesday Now from constituents who had received that email and then made a donation to Giving Tuesday Now per my report that I created. So now I can use this to thank constituents who have not only given to Giving Tuesday Now, but as my report that was referenced had opened up that previous email and then given. So if you're looking for more specific constituents such as that, you can use a report that you've created and you can reference that directly in an email. You can do that in a letter template as well, and you can also do that in other reports. So if you need a report to reference another report's results, you can do that through there. Thank you very much for attending. I hope to see you again for another class here, and everyone have a great day. Thank you.